Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. So today I wanted to take a moment to talk about the Mulcharmy cards, but most prominently Mulcharmy Fuwalos. So this video should be going out the day this card is releasing in Master Duel, but I'm recording it a little bit ahead of time so that way I can get my thoughts in, and also so I can have a bit of time to do some pack opening potentially and or deck building with the new stuff. But this is definitely a topic that a lot of people have been talking about. The Mulcharmy cards are pretty notoriously known as Maxi lookalikes. They are not quite the same. I've actually talked about this card specifically here on the channel before. The day that it was announced actually to be, or the day it was revealed rather, in the OCG. Yeah, I think that was when I posted it. So at the time I said that this card and Maxi can't really coexist, and that is still true, but it's mostly just true that Maxi should just be banned anyway. Shocking statement, I know. Only the most, divisive of opinions here. But anyway, so I guess the big question is, how good will Mulcharmy Fuwalos actually end up being in Master Duel? I do also want to talk a little bit about Perulia and Meowls. So at the time that I'm recording this, I don't know for sure if we're getting these cards, but kind of operating under the assumption that we are, at least Perulia. But I also kind of wouldn't be surprised if we got Meowls, a little bit before the TCG did. That has happened before with some other cards. But again, we're going to mainly focus on Fuwalos because one, this is the one that has been confirmed to be coming out, and two, this is the one that's going to see the most play of any of them anyway. So for those unfamiliar, Mulcharmy Fuwalos is a winged wing beast, level 4 monster with 100 attack, 600 defense. It says if you control no cards, quick effect, you can discard this card, apply these effects this turn. Each time your opponent special summons a monster from the deck and or extra deck, immediately draw one card. Once during this end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than the number of cards your opponent controls plus 6, you must randomly shuffle cards from your hand into the deck so the number in your hand equals the number your opponent controls plus 6. So basically you get to keep one card on top of 6 for every card that your opponent ends up having on their field. Alright, so the first thing that immediately strikes me about Fuwalos, and keep in mind also that I'm not a TCG or OCG player, so I actually don't have personal experience playing with this card just yet. But of course, we have seen a lot of metas develop with this card being legal. The first thing that really strikes me about it is the fact that you have to control no cards in order to use this effect. So that strikes me first and foremost as a going second card. Of course, if you go first and immediately commit any amount of cards to the field, but naturally you'll want to do that to build a board, then you're not going to be able to use this on your opponent's turn. Now, there are some scenarios where you could end up using this if you go first, if your opponent ends up wiping out your whole board and outing it to the point where you have nothing on the field. I mean, then, yeah, you could definitely use it. And to be fair, you could even find like a Nibiru or other hand traps at that point that might help you. But yeah, you are going to primarily be using this during your opponent's first turn. Now, I have talked a little bit about how I'm not the biggest fan of cards that are at their best going second on the channel before, but I will also throw in a little bit of a caveat here. See, a lot of those cards that I've talked about, I'm referring to playing like spell and trap cards, like Lightning Storm or Evenly Matched in a deck that would normally want to go first. But a card like Mulcharmy Fuwalos, which is a monster, has other potential applications, right? You could, in theory, normal summon this and just link it off for something. That comes up in a lot of decks, like MathMech. Actually, people on our Discord server, the Hexlexplex, have been talking quite a bit about using Mulcharmy Fuwalos in MathMech. Again, for the reason that MathMech, among just about any deck out there, can make the best use of hand traps as combo materials by linking them off into Almirage, triggering Parallel Exceed, more importantly just having a Cyber Spotty to then combo with one of your many extenders. Another good use of Mulcharmy Fuwalos, that's something you can't do with like Lightning Storm or Evenly Matched, is Small World, which again, MathMech plays. So You know, it's level 4, which is a very easy bridge for a lot of very common targets. But of course, like any deck that plays Small World, it's going to really be dependent on what you're looking for, right? But again, thinking about Math Mech specifically, all of the Math Mech monsters that are relevant are level 4. I think they're all level 4 in general, right? So this can be a bridge between them, and wind monsters could be like Droll and Lockbird. You could also, in theory, bridge this into like Parallel Exceed or from Parallel Exceed, because this is wind and so is that. So yeah, there's a number of options there. I see 600 defense. I also think Cupid Pitch, but again, you know, if you're going off with a Cupid Pitch combo line, are you really going to search something that once you have no cards in the field? Probably not. So, but I guess the big question is like, is this an auto include, quote unquote, to the same degree that Max C is? And I hesitate to say that the answer is yes. Tenpai obviously would want to play this because, well, they go second. Just about any going second deck is definitely going to jam 3 copies of Fuwalos. And I think, of course, when this card comes out, you'll see pretty much everybody jamming Fuwalos just to try it out, myself included. I'll be playing it in quite a few decks. But I think it requires at least a little bit of thought. I mean, to be fair, that's actually true of Max C. You don't actually play Max C in every single deck. You play it in like 98% of decks, but there are some decks where you actually have reason to not play Max C. And that is going to be even more true of Mulcharmy Fuwalos. See, and of course, this is something we all are familiar with because we've experienced it a lot with Max C. The thing that makes Max C so good is that you can just use it even if you go first on top of your end board, and it becomes that much more for your opponent to try to out, right? And yeah, it's pretty brutal in that regard. And this, you know, thankfully is balanced to not be quite the same. That said, I still think that there are a fair amount of decks that wouldn't mind playing it. I mean, you think about a card like Psyframe Gear Gamma, right? Now, that only requires that you control no monsters, and that is very different from having to control no cards. No cards means not even any set spell or trap cards. That is a pretty brutal restriction. It's the same restriction, I believe, as using Imperm from your hand, but of course, Imperm you can also just set if you go first, and it's still really useful, right? So, but again, you think about something like Gamma that requires you to control no monsters, and you're like, you know, it's not completely unfeasible to try playing Fuwalos in, you know, just about any other meta deck out there. So I think that a lot of decks that have the room for hand traps are going to look for this, right? And that's not true of every deck, especially 2-card combo decks. I think would really struggle to include Fuwalos on top of all of the combo pieces they need, as well as all of the hand traps that you would want to play over this. Which, what are those, by the way? Maxi, of course, you would always just play Maxi before Mulcharmy Fuwalos. I think you would always play Ash Blossoms before Fuwalos as well, mostly because of Max C, but also because of Fuwalos itself, potentially. Imperm is an interesting one, because not every deck runs Imperm. I guess at that point, that's true of like just about any deck that, you know, Max C and Ash Blossom are the hand traps to play. But do you play Imperm before you ever play Fuwalos? See, it's just so deck dependent at that point, right? Because I could see small world based decks that would love to play Fuwalos, but are, you know, so monster heavy that they can't really spare the room for something like Imperm, you know. Same if you try to compare it with like Valor or Nib. But I could see it being around that level of hand trap, like Valor, Nib, where you'd see it in like, not every single deck, but, you know, actually I don't know the official in-game numbers for play rates of stuff like Valor and Nib off the top of my head, but somewhere in like the 60-70% category, 50-60-70% I have to imagine. Anyway, yeah, I could see Mulcharmy Fuwalos seeing about that play rate. I think we also see it played at about that rate in best of one tournaments in the OCG. Over on the Patreon, we pretty regularly go to Road to the King and then go over those OCG tournament results. And yeah, I do note that even of the best of one tournament results, you do see the Mulcharmy Fuwalos quite a bit among them. So yeah, I would definitely expect to see quite a bit of this card in Master Duel. Again, I think it is a little more deck dependent than some people might think. I don't think this is an auto-include to the same degree as Maxi. Again, you certainly always play Maxi before you play Fuwalos. If Maxi were to hypothetically get banned, that would be a very interesting question of how much play the Mulcharmy cards see then. Now, as I said before at the top of the video, I'm mostly focusing on Fuwalos because this is the one that we know for sure right now. Again, the time I'm recording this is like a day and a half before that pack comes out. You know which Mulcharmy cards are coming out, but mostly focusing on this one because it's the one we know for sure is coming out and the one that we'll see the most play. The other cards are still worth mentioning, though. In particular, the Pirellia is not bad. Again, normal summoning, or not again, but of course, rather, normal summoning is very common. Specialing from hand, though, is pretty deck dependent how often they do that, and I think that is extra true of Meows, which is from Graveyard or Banishment. Aside from caring where the opponent is special summoning, or I guess normal summoning from, the only difference of these cards is, well, just that. Otherwise, as you can see, their effects are completely identical. So you can also only activate 2 total Mulcharmys per turn because they all have the clause. You can only activate 1 other Mulcharmy effect the turn you activate this effect. But again, Meows, you don't really... That's the thing about these 2 cards. I think their conditions are a little bit too narrow to see play in a best of one format. And that is also a lot of why you have to ask yourself if you're going to play Fuwalos in Master Duel in particular. I touched upon it earlier when talking about, you know, OCG tournament results, but best of one, of course, means that you are either, like, you have one shot to either go first or second. In best of 3, where you are at some point always going to go first or second, main decking the Fuwalos is a lot easier of an, you know, a thing to do. In best of 1, you do have to actually kind of consider it a little bit more. Again, the nature of a going second card, but also, as I pointed out before, this is a lot better than some other going second cards for the utility it has just for being a monster. You know, in some decks in particular, I might even care about it being Wind or Wing Beast as a material to make something, just hypothetically. But I would say, if you're going to ask, like, let's assume all 3 of these cards end up being URs. We know this one for sure is, again, not sure about Pirellia and Meows. I would say go for a playset of Fuwalos. I don't think that you would be particularly let down by crafting that. Even if you don't play it in every single deck, I think it is a hand trap that you play often enough that it is worth the craft. Plus, let's be real, you know, with what else is in the pack, if you're more competitively focused, and like, if you're like me and you prefer to save for more competitively focused archetypes, then a lot of the archetypes in this pack are really not ones you should feel compelled to invest in. Obviously, if you like stuff like Ashen or the Light and Darkness deck, they are cool. I mean, Light and Darkness stuff with Branded does seem particularly good as well as cool. But all in all, it's not like Fiendsmith is also in this pack. That's also, I think, a highly intentional and strategic move on Konami's part to put the Mulcharmy cards, or at the very least Fuwalos, in a pack that, you know, people might otherwise not be interested in. Same with the Verodros for the Ubel deck there. But yeah, I think that especially given the fact that there's probably not many other URs most people are going to be going for in this pack anyway, I don't think it's that big of an ask to craft a playset of Fuwalos. And I don't think that many people would be disappointed in that if you play a variety of decks. If you play a deck where you don't think it's worth it, then yeah, you could probably end up skipping on it. But I don't know exactly how many of those are going to be just yet. I think we'll have to find out. So I'm definitely going to be trying it out, like I said, the Fuwalos for sure. Now, as far as the Pirellia and the Meows, if these are also both URs, I would probably wait unless you have like an excess of UR crafts materials, right? So like, I don't know. It would take me wanting to, because there are other like decks that I also want to play right now, right? That require URs. I'm thinking particularly of like Orcus variants. I love me a playset of Girasus. I don't know if in Best of One I'm going to use Perulia often enough to warrant prioritizing crafting it to the same degree as other hand traps, right? Over a deck I might want to try. Now, if you're playing in a lot of best of 3 tournaments using Master Duel, you know, as the means to do that, then I think you would probably hold Perulia in much higher priority. But I do think this is a side deck card, and I think unless there was a number of decks in the meta that Perulia was all very good against, see, that's the thing, like, that deck would have to exist, and you would have to be playing this on top of Maxi, and also likely on top of Fuwalos as well. And there are some decks out there that can't actually play that many hand traps. I think they're pretty few and far between, though. I think Meows is pretty strictly a side deck card. I can't imagine a meta where you would main this unless there was like a tier 0 deck that was like really pumping monsters out of the graveyard and banishment. And even then, you'd probably main Maxi and very likely Fuwalos still too anyway. Unless the given nature of the deck very specifically only summoned from the graveyard and banishment. But that would be pretty unlikely. So I think Meows, even more than Perulia, would definitely be a sideboard card. Like, Perulia, I could see an argument, even in, like, not just this specific meta, but any given meta, for a deck that would main a ton of hand traps, maybe considering this. But I wouldn't say the same thing for Meows. So that's pretty much my thoughts on the Mulcharmy cards for now. We'll have to see how things play out. How do I feel about it, though? Like, do I think it's going to be quote-unquote that bad? I don't know. I'm not really particularly worried about it. I mean, here's the thing. Like, playing under Maxi already isn't ideal, but I don't really think this is going to be that much worse on top of it. I could very easily be eating these words like a month from now. I could see myself being like, what was I thinking saying that? I can't stand it right now. But I kind of doubt that's going to be the case. I mean, I don't know. It's the same thing whenever I think about, like, playing, because I don't know. I don't talk about it a lot, but I do, of course, have the thought that everyone else does, that playing under Maxi can be, you know, a little bit stressful sometimes. But at the end of the day, the thing I always end up saying to myself is, oh, what am I going to do? Not play Yu-Gi-Oh? And it's like, that pretty much is what it comes down to for me. And yes, I know, I could play the TCG, which doesn't have Maxi, but, well, I've had a couple of videos at least now on my thoughts about playing the TCG. I think you all know how I feel about that. So, all right, that's going to go ahead and do it. Thank you so very much for watching. There should be content coming out here featuring some of the new cards, at the very least Fuwalos, if not also at least a couple of others. Like, definitely going to try Veradress and Ubel and some other stuff. So that'll be it for now. Thanks for watching. Let's go ahead and move on to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Just want to give you a huge thanks for watching all the way to the very end of the video. Believe it or not, that is actually one of the best ways that you can support the channel, is by watching the videos in their entirety. But there are many ways in which you can support the channel if you are so interested. The names that you're seeing on screen here, I gotta give an extra special thanks to, because these are people who have chosen to either become a member on YouTube, which if you're interested in, you can do as well via the join button next to the subscribe button down there, or have signed up over on Patreon and become members there. Link to that is going to be in the description below. Without the support that is being offered by, again, all the people that you're seeing on screen right here, I would not be able to take the time to dedicate to uploading daily YouTube videos. So thank you so very much. But there are also other ways you can support as well. Again, link to the description below. If you like my deck tracker that you'll see in a lot of my videos, the Untapped Companion, you can download that for free. And if you use my affiliate link down there, then that also goes a long way towards supporting the channel. That's again free. So is subscribing here on YouTube. That's also free and a huge way to support. You can also check out Twitch, once again linked in the description below. Following and subscribing over there will not only support as well, but also give you notifications of when I go live if you want to catch some of the live streams. But really, no matter how you choose to support, it all adds up and it all definitely means the world. So thank you, each and every one of you. For now, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out. But more than that, I'm hoping that you have a fantastic day.